Tonight, we begin with something you think you already know by heart. The 4th of July. That great red, white, and blue blow out of grilled meat, warm potato salad, lawn chairs, and fireworks you bought from a slightly suspicious tent in a parking lot. It is the one holiday where a grown adult will happily set fire to a small explosive in their own driveway and call it patriotism. But here is the quiet, slightly uncomfortable truth. Almost everything you have been told about that day is a little bit wrong. Wrong date, wrong signing, wrong bell, wrong flag, and possibly a wrong turkey. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And a sincere thank you to the listener who suggested tonight's topic. These ideas from you are the whole reason this channel keeps growing. And I truly appreciate every single one. Let me know in the comments where you are tuning in from and what time it is for you, because somehow it is always very late somewhere. We are also now on Spotify. So if you would rather drift off with just the audio, the link is in the description. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background, ham man, and let us ease into tonight's journey together. Let us pause for a second. Have you ever wondered whether anyone actually signed anything on the 4th of July? Did the Liberty Bell really ring? Or is that just something a very confident teacher told you once? Did Betsy Ross exist? Or is she the historical equivalent of a story your grandmother swears is true? Was the whole country even in agreement? Or was there one guy in New York quietly muttering, "Let me get back to you on that"? And why do we celebrate a document by blowing up the sky? Congratulations! You have just woken up in Philadelphia in the summer of 1776. It is hot. It is humid. The flies are enormous. And history is about to get a lot messier than the poster in your 3rd grade classroom. Let us start with the big one, the crack in the foundation of the entire holiday. The Continental Congress actually voted to break away from Britain on the 2nd of July, 1776. Not the 4th. That was the real moment. The actual decision. The point of no return. The 4th was simply when they finished arguing over the wording of the announcement. So every year on the wrong evening, you light a sparkler in honor of a vote that had already happened 2 days earlier. It is like celebrating your wedding anniversary on the day the invitations were printed. Picture the scene. It is the 2nd of July. The air in Philadelphia, thick enough to chew, and inside a warm brick building, a group of exhausted men has just done the single most dangerous thing of their lives. They have voted to commit treason against the most powerful empire on earth. This is the moment. This is the heartbeat. If there were ever a day to fire a cannon and weep into your waistcoat, it is right now. And what does the country do to honor this sacred instant? It ignores it completely and throws the party 2 days later. The confusion is not really anyone's fault, though what happened on the 4th was that Congress formally adopted the final text, the polished wording of the Declaration itself, And because that document carries the date, the 4th of July, right there at the top. That is the date that stuck in everyone's memory. People remembered the paper, not the vote. The announcement outshone the decision, the way a wedding photo outshines the far less romantic moment someone actually signed the license at a courthouse. John Adams, who was there for all of it, believed to his bones that the 2nd of July was the date that would echo through history. He was so confident that he wrote it down, which we will get to. He imagined future generations celebrating that day with bonfires and bells. What he could not have imagined was that they would celebrate enthusiastically, wholeheartedly. And on the wrong afternoon, while he spun quietly in his grave like a rotisserie chicken of vindication. Think about how strange this is in modern terms. Imagine your company makes a massive decision on a Tuesday, the kind that changes everything, and then everyone agrees to celebrate on Thursday because that is when the press release got formatted. 2 days of your life quietly erased from the story simply because the paperwork looked better with a later date on it. That is essentially what happened to the 2nd of July. It did the hard work, and the 4th of July took the credit and the fireworks. And here is the truly delicious part. None of this makes the holiday wrong. Exactly. The decision on the 2nd and the document on the 4th are two halves of the same event, like deciding to jump and then actually jumping. It is just that. We chose to commemorate the paperwork rather than the plunge. We are, as a nation, celebrating the receipt instead of the purchase. So tonight, as you settle in, hold this gently in your mind. The freedom you associate with one specific summer evening was actually locked in 48 hours earlier by a room full of nervous men who had no idea which date you would eventually pick. They just knew they had done something they could never take back. The calendar, as usual, was an afterthought, and the little 2-day gap is only the first thread we are about to pull. John Adams was so certain about the date that he put it in writing, which is a bold move for anyone. In a letter to his wife Abigail, he predicted that the 2nd of July would be remembered forever with parades, games, bells, bonfires, and illuminations across the land. He was right about the celebration and wrong about the day by a full 48 hours. Imagine being one of the smartest men in the room, correctly predicting fireworks 2 centuries in advance and still fumbling the date. Adams was essentially the first person to be annoyed about the 4th of July, and he never really got over it. Let us sit with the sheer confidence of this man for a moment. He does not hedge. He does not say the celebrations might land somewhere in early July, give or take. He names the day the 2nd, and then describes the party in loving specific detail, right down to the illuminations, which is the 18th century word for lighting things on fire in a festive rather than criminal way. He is basically writing a review of a holiday that will not exist for another year. And he is getting the vibe completely right and the date completely wrong. It is the kind of prediction that would be genuinely impressive if it were not so quietly tragic. He nailed the parades. He nailed the bonfires. He nailed the bonfires. He nailed the bells and the games and the general national tendency to celebrate freedom by making a lot of noise. He saw all of it coming clear as day, decades and centuries into the future. And then the country looked at his beautifully accurate forecast, said, "Thank you very much," and scheduled the whole thing 2 days after the date he circled. Imagine the modern equivalent. You send a text to your partner announcing that this coming Friday will be remembered as the greatest night of your lives, and you describe the entire evening in advance. The food, the music, the fireworks, everything. And then it all happens exactly as you said. Gloriously, joyfully, perfectly. Except on Sunday. You were right about everything except the one detail you are most sure of. That is Adam's. That is his entire relationship with this holiday. And he knew that is what makes it so wonderful. Adams lived for another 50 years after this letter, which meant he had 5 full decades to watch the nation celebrate on the 4th, while he privately insisted it should be the 2nd. He was the original, oh well, actually, guy at the party, standing slightly off to the side, arms crossed, muttering that everyone was doing it wrong. You almost certainly know someone exactly like this. There is a decent chance you are someone exactly like this. There is something deeply human in it, though Adams was not wrong about what mattered. He understood better than almost anyone that this event deserved to be remembered with joy and light and a slightly unsafe amount of gunpowder. His only mistake was assuming the country would remember the moment of decision rather than the moment of announcement. He bet on substance. The nation bet on the headline. The nation won, as it usually does. So the next time you hear someone smugly correct a small factual detail while everyone else is simply enjoying themselves. Spare a thought for John Adams, the founding father who saw the future with astonishing clarity and still got overruled by a piece of paper with a better date on it. He predicted your entire holiday. He just could not convince you when to have it. And honestly, that is the most relatable thing a founding father has ever done. Here is where the myth truly begins to unravel. You probably picture all the founders gathered around a table on the 4th, quill pens in hand, solemnly signing their names as sunlight streamed through the window. That did not happen. On the 4th, Congress approved the text of the document. Most of the men did not put their signatures on the official copy until the 2nd of August, nearly a month later. The dramatic group signing, you imagine, is less a historical event and more a very persuasive oil painting. Let that settle for a second. The single most famous act of the American founding. The moment 56 brave men put their names on the line, knowing it could get them hanged, did not happen on the day you celebrate it. It happened weeks afterward in dribs and drabs on a random Friday in August, when the weather was arguably even worse, and nobody thought to make a painting of it. What actually happened on the 4th was procedural and frankly a little dull. Congress adopted the wording They agreed the text was final. That was the vote. There was no grand ceremonial lineup, no orchestral swell, no beam of divine light illuminating a quill. There was mostly relief, exhaustion, and the pressing question of how quickly they could get the thing printed and distributed before the whole endeavor got them killed. The signing, the real one, the pen to parchment moment, came later. Once a proper handwritten copy had been carefully prepared. On the 2nd of August, the delegates who were around began adding their signatures to that formal version, and even then, it was not everyone at once. It was a trickle, a slow procession of men stopping by to make it official whenever they could manage it. Think about what this does to the image in your head, the one where they are all there together, shoulder to shoulder, a band of brothers, united in a single heroic instant. It is a beautiful picture. It is also essentially a dramatization, the historical equivalent of a movie that opens with the words based on a true story and then invents most of the good parts. The truth is more like a shared document that people signed as they got around to it, which anyone who has ever chased down co-workers for signatures will recognize immediately. Here is a modern comparison that hurts a little. Imagine your entire team makes a huge decision in a meeting on Monday. Everyone agrees. The decision is locked. It is real. But the actual contract does not get signed until weeks later. And even